My family cut me off and said, "You'll never be anything." They invited me to the reunion if you can afford it. I arrived late, and the host announced, "Please welcome the new owner of this resort." As every face turned toward me, they were shocked to find I could afford to buy a resort. I, 32M, stood at the back of the resort's grand ballroom, watching my family mill around with their drinks and fake laughter. They had no idea I owned every polished tile they walked on, every crystal chandelier above their heads, every bottle of overpriced wine they were gulping down. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, a cheap printed card with a note scribbled at the bottom asking if I could even afford the weekend rate. My cousin had added a smiley face next to it, like it was all just harmless teasing. It wasn't teasing. It never had been. Growing up, I was the family disappointment. My older brother was the golden child, the one who went to law school and married into money. My younger sister had charm and looks, the kind that opened doors without effort. I was the middle kid who stuttered through presentations and spent too much time with computers in the basement. My father used to tell people I was shy when I was younger, but by the time I hit my 20s, he just stopped mentioning me at all. The breaking point came when I was 24. I had started a small tech consulting business, barely making ends meet but building something. I asked my father for a loan to upgrade equipment, just $5,000 that I promised to pay back with interest. He looked at me across his mahogany desk and told me I would never amount to anything. He said throwing money at my hobby would be like lighting it on fire, and he had better things to do with his capital. My mother stood in the doorway and said nothing. My brother laughed and suggested I get a real job. I left that house and never asked them for anything again. For 8 years, I worked 80-hour weeks. I slept in my office more nights than I slept in my apartment. I taught myself coding, network security, business development, and investor relations. My first major contract came from a mid-sized company that needed their entire system overhauled after a ransomware attack. I delivered results in half the expected time, and word spread. Within 3 years, I had expanded into cybersecurity consulting for corporations. Within 5 years, I was buying smaller firms and consolidating services. By year 7, I had enough capital to start investing in real estate. My family heard nothing about any of this. They never called. They never asked. I changed my number twice and moved 4 times, and not once did anyone try to find me. I saw their lives on social media, the vacation photos and anniversary posts, the pictures of my nieces and nephews I had never met. My brother's law firm made partner announcements. My sister launched a lifestyle blog. My parents retired to a golf community. I was a ghost to them, and I preferred it that way. Then the invitation arrived. My father's 70th birthday, a weekend reunion at the Grandview Resort and Spa, a luxury property 2 hours north of the city. The note at the bottom was in my sister's handwriting, asking if I could afford it or if I needed help with the cost. She included the room rates as if I might not know how to Google them. I had bought the Grandview 6 weeks earlier. The acquisition was business, not revenge. The resort was underperforming but had good bones, a solid location, and potential for rebranding. The previous owners were bleeding money on outdated marketing and poor management. I saw an opportunity, ran the numbers, and made an offer through one of my holding companies. The deal closed quietly. I kept the existing management in place temporarily and told them to continue operations as normal while I evaluated restructuring options. When the invitation arrived, I realized the timing was too perfect to ignore. My family had booked the entire resort for the weekend, likely leveraging my father's old business connections to negotiate a group rate. They had no idea who owned it now. The general manager had no idea I was related to the guests. As far as anyone knew, I was just an investor who occasionally checked in on properties. I decided to attend. I told the management team I would be arriving Saturday evening and wanted to make a brief announcement during the birthday dinner. They assumed it was standard corporate presence, maybe a welcome speech to high-value guests. I did not correct them. I booked a suite under my company name and arranged to arrive after the cocktail hour when everyone would be settled in the ballroom. The 3 months between the invitation and the event were busy. I finalized a merger, launched 2 new service divisions, and closed on a commercial property downtown. My assistant asked if I wanted to send a gift for my father's birthday. I told her no. I pulled into the resort's private entrance at 7:30, an hour after the dinner had started. The valet looked confused when I handed him the keys to my car and walked past the main entrance toward the executive access. I had changed clothes in my suite earlier that afternoon, arriving quietly through a side entrance while my family was on a guided nature walk. Now I wore a tailored suit and carried nothing but my phone. The ballroom was exactly as I remembered from the photos in the booking confirmation. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, tables arranged in a horseshoe around a small stage. My family occupied the center tables, maybe 60 people total when you counted spouses and kids. I recognized most of them. My father sat at the head table, my mother beside him, both looking older but comfortable. My brother was laughing with his wife. My sister was taking photos with her phone. I stood near the back in trance and caught the general manager's eye. She nodded and walked to the small stage where a microphone stood ready. The dinner was winding down, dessert plates being cleared, coffee being poured. Perfect timing. The general manager tapped the microphone and asked for everyone's attention. She welcomed the guests and thanked them for choosing Grandview for such a special occasion. She mentioned that the resort had recently undergone a change in ownership and that the new owner had asked to say a few words. She gestured toward the back of the room and invited the owner to come forward. I started walking. The room was still turning to look when I reached the center aisle. My sister saw me first. Her smile froze mid-laugh, confusion crossing her face as she tried to place why I looked familiar. My brother turned next, his expression shifting from polite interest to recognition to something like disbelief. My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father just stared. I walked to the stage, shook the general manager's hand, and took the microphone. The room was silent except for the clinking of a few coffee cups on saucers. I thanked everyone for coming and said it was an honor to host such a meaningful family celebration at my resort. I explained that I had recently acquired the property as part of my portfolio expansion and was pleased to see it being enjoyed by people celebrating important milestones. I mentioned that I believed in family and the importance of coming together, even when years had passed and distance had grown. I did not mention that I was related to anyone in the room. I did not need to. Every face at the center tables had gone pale. I wrapped up quickly, wished my father a happy birthday, and told everyone to enjoy the rest of their evening. I handed the microphone back and walked off the stage, heading for the exit. Behind me, the room erupted in whispers. I made it halfway across the lobby before my brother caught up with me. He called my name, his voice tight and confused, and asked what the hell was going on. I stopped and turned to face him. He looked exactly like I remembered. Same confident posture, same expensive watch, same expectation that things would go his way. He asked if I really owned the resort. I confirmed that I did. He asked when that happened and why I had not told anyone. I reminded him that no one had asked. He started to say something about family and staying in touch, but I cut him off. I told him I had been building my life for 8 years and no one had cared enough to check in. He stammered something about being busy and assuming I was fine. My sister appeared next, her face flushed with what looked like anger and embarrassment. She demanded to know why I had let them book the resort without saying anything, why I had let her write that note about affording it. I told her she had written that note on her own, and I had no obligation to correct her assumptions. She called me petty and cruel. I asked her if she remembered the last time we spoke, when she told me I was wasting my life and needed to grow up. She went quiet. My mother came out then, tears in her eyes, saying she could not believe I would do this to the family. She said it was manipulative and hurtful to let them walk into this situation. I asked her what situation she meant, whether it was the situation where I was successful or the situation where she had to acknowledge I existed. She flinched. My father stayed inside. I could see him through the windows, still sitting at the head table, staring at his hands. I told my siblings and mother that I had no interest in rehashing the past or pretending we were close. I said I had come because I was invited, and I had introduced myself as the owner because it was true. I told them they were welcome to enjoy the rest of the weekend as planned, that their booking was already paid in full, and I had instructed staff to provide excellent service. I said after this weekend, they would not hear from me again unless they had something meaningful to say. My brother asked what I wanted from them. I told him I wanted nothing. That was the point. I walked away and went back to my suite. Update 1. The rest of the weekend was predictably awkward. My family finished their dinner, and from what staff reported, the atmosphere had shifted from celebration to tense confusion. Several relatives approached the front desk asking questions about me, trying to piece together how the quiet kid who used to live in the basement now owned a multi-million-dollar resort. The staff, trained in discretion, provided no additional information. I stayed in my suite for most of Saturday night, working on laptop and reviewing quarterly reports. Around midnight, my father knocked on my door. I debated not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door and found him standing there in his dinner jacket, looking smaller than I remembered. He asked if we could talk. I let him in, but did not offer him a seat. He stood in the middle of my suite's living room, looking around at the luxury furnishings and mountain view, and told me he had been wrong. He said he should have believed in me when I asked for help, that he had underestimated me. He said he was proud of what I had accomplished. I asked him if he was proud of me or proud of the money. He did not answer right away. I told him that was answer enough. He tried to explain that he had always wanted the best for me, that his harsh words were meant to motivate me. I reminded him that his harsh words were that I would never be anything, not that I should try harder. There was a difference. He asked what he could do to fix things. I told him nothing. I explained that I had spent 8 years proving him wrong not because I wanted his approval, but because I wanted to prove it to myself. I said I was content with my life and did not need him in it. He looked at me with something like pain and said I was his son. I told him he had made his choice about what that meant a long time ago. He left without another word. Update 2. Sunday morning, I had breakfast in the resort's executive dining room, a private space usually reserved for VIP guests and corporate functions. I watched my family through the windows as they gathered for brunch in the main restaurant. Several of them kept glancing toward the building where I was, clearly aware I was somewhere on property, but unsure how to approach the situation. My sister tried texting me around 10. She apologized for calling me petty and said she wanted to talk. I did not respond. My brother sent an email an hour later with the subject line, family, and a long message about regret and missed opportunities. I archived it without reading past the first paragraph. What surprised me was my mother. She found out which suite I was in, probably by charming the front desk staff, and showed up at my door around noon. When I opened it, she was holding a photo album I recognized from my childhood. She asked if she could come in. Against my better judgment, I let her. She sat on the couch and opened the album to pictures of me as a kid. Science fair projects, school plays, birthday parties. She pointed to one photo of me holding a trophy for a coding competition in middle school and said she had kept all of these. She said she knew I had felt invisible, and she was sorry for not standing up for me more. She admitted she had always deferred to my father's judgment and had convinced herself that his tough love approach would work. I asked her why she was showing me this now. She said because she wanted me to know I had mattered, even when it did not feel like it. I told her that matching in a photo album was not the same as matching in real life. She started crying and said she knew that, but she did not know how else to explain that she had cared even when she failed to show it. I asked her what she wanted from this conversation. She said she wanted a chance to be in my life again, even if it was just occasional calls or emails. She said she understood if I said no, but she had to ask. I told her I would think about it. I did not promise anything, but I did not say no outright. She thanked me and left the album on the coffee table when she got up to go. Update 3. The family checked out Monday morning. I watched from my office in the resort's administrative wing as they loaded their cars and said their goodbyes. My father and brother left without trying to contact me again. My sister sent one more text saying she hoped I found what I was looking for, whatever that meant. Most of the extended family probably still had no idea what had happened beyond the awkward announcement Saturday night. I spent the rest of the week at the resort, meeting with the management team and planning renovations. We discussed rebranding strategies, marketing campaigns, and service improvements. The property had good potential, and I was committed to turning it into a flagship location for my hospitality division. On Thursday afternoon, I sat in the same ballroom where I had made my announcement, now empty except for staff setting up for a wedding the following weekend. I thought about what my father had said, about being proud. I realized I did not care whether he was proud anymore. I had stopped needing his approval somewhere around year 3 of building my business, and everything after that had been momentum. What I had not expected was the complication of my mother's visit. The photo album sat in my suite, and I found myself looking through it some nights. I remembered those moments, the times when I had felt like maybe I mattered. But I also remembered all the times after, when that feeling disappeared. I decided to keep the door open, barely. I sent my mother an email saying I was willing to have occasional contact, but that I needed her to respect my boundaries and understand that rebuilding trust would take time. She responded within an hour, thanking me and promising not to push. As for the rest of my family, I meant what I said. They had their chance, and they spent it making me feel worthless. I did not need revenge beyond showing them they were wrong. I did not need their apologies or their regrets. I had built something they could not take away, and that was enough. The resort became one of my most successful properties. I expanded it the following year, adding a conference center and luxury cabins. Business thrived. My family never visited again, though I heard through my mother that they talked about me now, that I had become the topic of family gatherings in a way I never was before. I did not care. I had moved on long before they realized I was gone, and their recognition of my success was irrelevant to my satisfaction. I had proven what I needed to prove to the only person whose opinion mattered, myself.